Hi, welcome back to our Ice Kitchen and our MasterChef series. Really lucky today to have my old pal David Pugh here. David and I have a long culinary history together, I should point out. And I've known David right through the Two Small Rooms decades, to the Restaurant 2, the Bistro 3, and now proudly the exec chef of the Brisbane Convention and Exhibition Centre here in Brisbane. So thank you for coming today, Dave. It's a good way of spending some of your downtime is showing everybody how fantastic you are. David's very knowledgeable. His insight into things goes way back, and you can't beat that these days. There's so much knowledge that we want to pass on to everybody watching. And a couple of the things I've asked David to do today have gone back to basics. But in particular, for this session, I'm going to get David to do his infamous crème brulee. Now, this is totally different to the way I learned French-style crème brulee, and totally different to the way we teach at Ice, but I love this. I think this is an awesome way of doing it. And you said you used to do both ways, and you've changed a little bit. So yeah. I'll let you explain the method. It is different. It doesn't require the bain-marie in the oven, but I can't argue yet because I haven't tasted yours, but I imagine it's just as good, takes less time, and take it away. Thank you very much for coming.
Cheers, Al. I'll start with a little story, and this one that really, customer of ours, doctor, he came back from New York. And he said, David, I met an interesting person the other day when I was in New York. And he said, I was in the dining room and just finished the main course. And our waiter came around and said, sir, would you like to order dessert? And he said, actually, I've had a look at the dessert list, and there's only one thing on there that sort of grabbed my attention. He said, that's the crème brulee. Yes, sir, we do the best crème brulee anywhere. And he goes, okay, I believe you. I said, okay. So anyway, cut to the chase. He's eating the crème brulee. The waiter's come over and he goes, so how was the crème brulee? And he goes, yeah, it was good. It was good. He said, but I think you should ask for the recipe of a small restaurant in Brisbane. And it's a place called Two Small Rooms. And he said, for me, they do the best crème brulee anywhere in the world. So, crème brulee, getting back to it, and it's all about the cooking. What you need is good eggs. And when I say good eggs, I mean the best that you can possibly find. These ones, free range, organic feed, and they come from a very good friend. And they are 700 gram per pack. And it's all about what you put into the chicken as to your end result. So we've got cream weighed out, and again, this one we're looking at approximately 300 grams of cream, or 300 mils of cream. We've got sugar weighed out, and then when we get to an area where it used to be that you would only deal with vanilla beans, and these ones are from Papua New Guinea. There's a lot of work goes into a vanilla bean, and they are very expensive, costly to produce, and they come from the orchid family, and they need to be hand-pollinated, each and every one, and that's where the cost arises. So if you're doing something like that in Australia and in the Daintree around the Cooktown area, your vanilla beans are going to be just that little bit more expensive. They're going to be very good, and they're going to be very fragrant, but the ones from Papua New Guinea are nonetheless excellent. Or we do have local product. 10, 15 years ago, you wouldn't have reached for this, but these guys, they're based in Brisbane and out by the Enoggera Barracks in Alderley. It's a family-run company, brother and sister, and they do an excellent job. They buy the best possible product, organic, vanilla bean, so you can use the paste or you can use the bean. Today we'll use the bean. We'll show you how to scrape it out afterwards. A lot of people say, well, you know, you can use the beans a couple of times. I'm a bit of a purist and just say you use it once, you can dry it out and then you can put it into your sugar. But if it's been in a pot with some cream, you've got to give it a good wash and then dry it out a little bit and then put it in with your sugar or in with your rice, depending on which way it goes. So first instance, what we're going to do, we're going to warm up the cream. We've got an induction top so you can see everything from start to finish here. And we pop the vanilla beans in And when they soften up a bit, we'll pull them out and we'll scrape them. Okay, so you just got to make sure your pot is big enough. Remember, you're only warming it up, and that's to get the process going a little bit quicker. Induction tops are great when you're working in confined space, and they've got better heat control than gas and electrically. If you're doing something like a preserve, they're very quick and they drop down to temperature very quick as well. You just got to keep a close eye on it if you're not used to cooking with them. Brings us to the, well, that's just coming up, brings us to the eggs. And I'll drop that temperature back while I crack these eggs. The other thing you can do, if you don't necessarily have to do vanilla. This leaves it open, and we did do cardamom and star anise. So there's all sorts of flavours you can do. If you go back to the 80s/90s, and Tetsuya Wakuta brought out a book, I believe it might have been the turn of the century, which makes me sound really old. Tets had a book, and he had 3 different types of brulee. So it's just a matter of infusing flavours that you want. Everybody used to just think vanilla and that was it. It was pure and simple, and we were all Puritans back then. But then you can do something with Asian flavours. You can do something with now for Middle Eastern flavours, with South American. So it really depends what floats your boat. No reason why you can't infuse chilies in there, cinnamon, a lot of different spices that I can see in front of me here. Cardamom is one of my favourites, but again, it's you use what you particularly like. If you're purist, we go back to the vanilla. So that's just warming up nicely. And I use cream and cream only. If we were doing this as a baked product and in a bain-marie and then through the oven, we can put milk in there and it just lightens it a bit on the tongue. But I think if you want to die happy, then you have as much richness as you possibly can. And for me, it's all good. It's natural product, it's cream, it's eggs, it's vanilla, sugar maybe not, but everything else, beautiful. So we need 2 containers for these eggs. So we're going to crack yolks in. Again, just make sure you don't, if you're going to get any white in there, just make sure it's as little as possible. A little bit of juggling here. There's small devices you can buy which will separate out your eggs and whites. We've got a bit of background music today, and it's called Mr. Crow. And here's going off. Cream's coming up nicely. Now there's quite a few eggs here. Now let's just let's put this all in perspective. You don't need to be this top heavy with the eggs, but if you're wanting to give the customer a very good experience, it just depends what your price point is for selling. So it's all relative. This one is quite versatile. If you want, you can make your base custard. You can put any leftover brulee mix. It can go into your custard. It can be for an ice cream. It can be for filling for a tart. Six. I know, 8 egg yolks. There's a few. I used to feel sorry for the guys at 2 Small Rooms. It was a very small kitchen, to say the least. I'd say it was very non-COVID friendly, in the fact that you could safely get a couple of people into that kitchen. And after that, you'd be in serious trouble because of close proximity to each other, which makes for a tight-knit team. All good, lid on. Used to be able to buy these eggs at the market. Now they're just for friends and family. That's the way I like it. If you go to some of the markets these days, you'll see just very small farms, and they'll have the eggs there. Just be mindful how long they've been out of the fridge for. Through the winter, not so bad, but through the summer, eggs will last to a certain degree, but you just got to be wary about salmonella. Okay, so we've got whites, which we can use for consommé, we can use it for meringues, we can use it for pavlova, and then we have our egg yolks. We have our cream, which has come up to the simmer. Put the eggs to one side. So what we're going to do is going to fish out the vanilla bean. And what we're doing, we're slicing them along. And we just got to be careful. Just a light scrape. And then back into the pot. There's still a little bit stuck on the end of the knife, that's okay. Depending on how strong or fragrant your vanilla beans are, depend on how much vanilla you're actually going to use. You can see you've got that beautiful vanilla there. Just carefully, off the tip of your knife. And I mean carefully. One accident a day is enough for me. And then with the vanilla bean, again, you can dry these out, give it a good wash and dry them out. And then that can be infused in some sugar or in some fat grain rice for making a rice pudding or doing any manner of custard. So you can still get a second run with it. We used to find that if you go too heavy on the vanilla bean, there is a certain bitterness you get about it, but you've also just make sure you take it to the point where it's got infused enough and no more. Okay, so we've got our yolks, we've got our infused cream, we've got our sugar. So what we're going to do now, because we're going to be cooking these out over a water bath, we'll just get this water up to temperature. In the meantime, we've got our caster sugar, our egg yolks. Now, you've got to be mindful when you're adding caster sugar to egg yolks, you don't let it sit. The reason being, it will actually burn, it'll form skins on top of your egg yolks. So for preparation, you can have these already done. You can have them Glad wrapped, sitting in the fridge, ready to go for your prep the next day or that afternoon, depending on when you're getting around to it. The cream and the vanilla, again, that could be infused. If you infuse it overnight, there's a lot of different ways to do it. You can do it in a sous vide bag, put your vanilla bean into your bag, tie it off, drop it into a double boiler or a steamer, bring it up to temperature so it's warm enough, chill it down in the fridge, let it infuse overnight. You probably get away with 50% less in the way of vanilla. Just got to make sure that it doesn't impart a bitterness. These are things that you have to work out. So, good whisk, good colour on the yolks. Just because they're organic feed doesn't mean they're going to be bright yellow. There's usually a reason for that, and sometimes it's not a good one. So all we're doing is just breaking it down. Now this recipe is 100 grams of sugar. And these days, a lot of our recipes, we've cut it back by at least 25-30% on the sugar content. And that's purely, it's dietary as well as people's taste buds are a little bit different these days. So I'll hold it a little bit back in reserve, and then we're going to need some sugar on top for glazing. So what we do this in, I'm going to do it in stages. This is still coming up. As I say, we're going to be cooking it out. We've just got to get a little bit of warmth into the eggs, into the sugar. And then we're going to add some of the vanilla cream in it. And we add that in stages where we get it to a custard-like consistency. We coat the back of a spoon and then we go again. As I say, induction's really good. You've just got to be careful when and where you use it. If you're doing demonstrations, or if you just need to warm something up and you're in a large kitchen and the stoves are way down the other end of the building that you're in, if you're allowed, you set up with an induction top, so you just have something warming up. You notice in a lot of, here we go, we're up to the simmer point already. We'll just drop that back to about 3 or 4, just so it's ticking over. I say they're very quick. You can see the eggs are starting to get to a point where they're like a sabayon. If you're worried about overcooking the egg, just drop your temperature right back. The other thing we used to do was put if you're using induction, you're not worried about a serviette or a tea towel catching light, just put a cloth around the ring there. And what we're going to do is just add about 1/3. And then we're going to take that to the ribbon stage. No particular reason, it's just that we have a little bit more control over it. If we do this slowly and carefully, then we find that we actually don't need to sieve the finished result. Because when you do put it through a strainer, you're going to lose a lot of your vanilla seeds. I still remember the day when it was back, might have been in the 70s even, and a customer sent the dessert back and said they couldn't eat something with cigarette ash in it. True story. Customers these days are informed. Some of them are a little bit too informed, but there are some very good programs on the box, be it on Netflix or be it on the commercial channels, and we're actually pretty lucky that shows like, dare I say it, MasterChef have enlightened the customer as to what goes on behind the scene. So they are indeed a bit more appreciative of the hard work and skills that go into creating a meal. We're getting up to ribbon stage again, so we're just going to go that last lot going in. Beautiful. Now, a process, if you're doing a large batch, could take you as much as 30-35 minutes. Smaller batch over the heat like this, and we're actually touching the water, so you've got to be really, really careful. We're not just relying on steam here. We've got a little bit of both. With, the touching of the water and the steam coming up the sides. Colour's looking very good. We can smell a mixture of both egg and vanilla, and we're talking like real vanilla. None of the old bakery custard tart, which would have nothing to do with vanilla and nothing to do with eggs usually. It's just a highly crafted powdered mix put into a tart shell with a substantial hit of sugar and a nice yellow colouring. I know my oldest daughter, Jessica, is a particular fan of this, and I got a funny feeling that she used to crave this when she was pregnant with her first child. I know that my wife, Paula, used to ring me up at work. It wasn't for the crème brulee because it was slightly before those times. It was more for a strawberry millefeuille, which our pastry chef used to do, and I was lucky that Claire, the pastry chef, had worked at the Connaught where I was working in London. So when I said Paula wants some strawberry millefeuille, she used to make a beautiful puff pastry from scratch. The custard, the cream, the strawberries, and I think that's where Jessica might have got the taste for that particular vanilla custard. So we consequently gave Jessica's middle name Claire, named after a very dear friend who was one of the best pastry chefs. It's looking pretty good. It's getting there. I think we've got a few more minutes and we'll be done. Again, you've just, not the sort of thing where you want to be having your attention taken away, bear with chit-chat with other people. And if you're unsure, I tend to use my iPhone as a device in a second counter. So I'll put it on for whatever time I used last time. And that way we've got a yardstick. Just remembering that all eggs are different, all cream is different. Vanilla will vary in flavour, whether it be from Madagascar or New Guinea or Tahiti. So to each his own on that one. And if someone's pushing a particular type of vanilla bean, even though it may be from Cooktown, it was hand-pollinated by 20 Vestal virgins, it doesn't mean that it's going to have a fantastic flavour. It just may be something out of the back of Papua New Guinea where they've done it for the last 100 plus years, and the climate in a certain region is absolutely spot on. I think we're nearly there. Just going to make sure we slow the process down. As you can see, when we're whisking, it's leaving that trademark behind it, and it's going to thicken up quite easily. There's no dodgy cook bits there. It's nice and clean all the way through. So if someone's coming around and assessing you, you won't get much better than that, unless you're using a golden whisk. This is all about experience as well. It's my first demonstration. I did the Gas Corp back in the 90s with Barbara Harmon. I did a crème brulee, I did a steak, I did a crème brulee. It was what I was comfortable with, it's what I was known for. It worked then, and it's worked again today. And it's very versatile. You might take it a touch further. Normally when it gets to this point, if you had a combination of milk and cream, this is when you would be looking at adding your seaweed. Now, I'm not talking about nori sheets either. And it would thicken up while it's still hot. And again, you wouldn't be able to taste it. It's got a presence, and it's not a presence you can taste, but it's a presence you can lightly feel with your tongue. And to be quite honest, it's just gives it that little bit extra. Now, the beauty about something like the brulee, or a custard for that matter, whatever's in season. So we're not exactly known for our raspberries in Queensland, but at this time of year, we're coming into the winter. This is when our raspberries are on. From around Wamaran area, our strawberries are just coming on. Our citrus, we've got the new season of the mandarins coming through now. Or if you're making it over Christmas time, we used to use this base, bottom of a tart shell, and then a mango cheek on the top. So you didn't glaze the brulee, you glazed the mango. Beautiful, easy dessert, as long as you've got nice tart shells and a good custard and nice ripe mangoes. Kensington Pride. None of the other dodgy varieties which are full of honey or extra sugar or... And then, just to gild the lily a bit, you take something like the brulee base and we put some lime zest through it. Goes really well with the mango. little bit of fresh lime juice, make it up and then serve it straight away. So you've got to know your boundaries as well. So for competition, that's when you can really extend your knowledge. But if you're doing it day by day at work and it's got to sit there for a period of time, just do as you're told. You know, your sky's the limit, but they're not paying you to be ultra creative. They're paying you to get the job done. The creativity comes after when you're your own boss or you're working in a team, which you're allowed to show some flair and scope. Okay, we're going to stop it there. For me, that's absolutely spot on. Cool. Okay, as you can see, no lumps, no sieving. With the moulds, just feel it. We'll smooth it off. So what you want to have it flush across the top, you take the sugar and you can let a little bit run down the sides. Okay, now we're just going to put a little bit of caster sugar over the top. You can use an icing sugar sifter if you want, something that's just the right size. This one we're just going to do one glaze. Beautiful. Just nice, low flame. Don't need to blast it. Just hold it back. Remember, all you're doing is caramelising. Just bringing back old memories. Some good, some not so. Remember, you're not going to get the absolute perfect glaze right across the top. And the idea is don't put too much sugar on at the start. You can always put some more on afterwards. Just depends how thick a crust you want. And just be careful because sugar burns are worst. And you can see it's still cooking, still heating. We'll let it cool down. We've got some dark spots, some nice blonde areas. Good flavour, especially in the darker areas. And then when you're serving it, you still got that nice sort of wobble factor with it when you're serving it. Any fruit you like. And the way we're going these days, guys are doing vegetables. Pickling vegetables. So you've got a good foil there for all that fat from the cream and all that richness from the egg. You could get away with some nice sugary or pickled parsnips would be a good one. Nice delicate sort of flavour. Even carrot, and it's something you can have a play with when you're making up the dessert. Just to think outside the box, and that's really what it's all about. Just do the basics first up, and then try and change it after you've mastered the art of making something fairly simple. And it's the simple things that are the hardest, but the most rewarding. Yeah, this one, look, we would actually, if the custard is chilled, or the brulee is chilled, we glaze it, we send it straight away. And as I was saying before, the good part about having something like a seaweed in, you can actually turn it out and then glaze it on the plate or on a dish, lift it up, serve it. We did one with, we called it a bacon and egg, so we did maple candied, was it prosciutto, and served that on the side. And we also used some pickled pumpkin to go with it, just in the form of a cone. So it's got a little bit of sugar, a little bit of vinegar there, not too strong, and just scrolled them into cones. You can do them cannelloni shape, but they were fairly light because they were thinly sliced. If it's dense, if it's in a cube, it might be too much. With a fruit, it's okay, but with a vegetable, yeah, you've got to be mindful of how you're actually doing your cut. So Alison did some cuts with a jardiniere or with a julienne. Something like that with a light pickle would be very good to go with something like the brulee.